Thank you. Okay. It's about 3 p.m. on a summer day in Venice, Italy. There's a slight breeze coming in from the lagoon, which I appreciate because it being the first full day of my college study abroad program, I am not yet accustomed to the humidity hanging like a blanket over the city. Sweat soaks through my lidded, blended clothing that I bought from Gap for my international travels, but another physical sensation occupies my thoughts, the rumbling of my stomach. The first pang of hunger struck in the morning. I jumped out of bed, having spent the night being eaten alive by mosquitoes, eager to begin the quest to find my very first Venetian meal. However, I am now approaching the 5th hour without any food, so I'm a bit frantic at this point. And it's not that I haven't found any worthy contenders. There's a fruit stand, Il Frutolo, that's right around the corner of my apartment in Sant'Elena, which is one of the 6 sestieri of Venice. There's a pizza place, Vecchiaggina Pizzeria, just before the Vaporetto stop. And there's a charming restaurant, Osteria de Campo, which I'm standing directly in front of now. My stomach leaps as I watch a basket of bread and olive oil being carried to the table. I have walked back and forth across the entrance of this restaurant about 6 times now. I worry that I'm beginning to draw attention to myself, pacing back and forth like a creep, but I cannot build up the courage to walk up to the hostess to ask for a table. What is wrong with me? I am a 20-year-old woman. I've lived in New York for about 3 years, in a dorm, but still. Asking for a table should not be an obstacle at this point. I'm supposed to be fearless. Instead, I'm absolutely terrified that I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I don't know the actual words I'm supposed to use. I've taken Italian classes, but I don't really know how real Venetians would ask for a table. This is different from the textbook. So, in the subsequent paces back and forth across the entrance, I practice what I'm gonna say to the hostess. So now I'm pacing and mumbling to myself, which, paints a great picture. And I can ask in English. This is true. But I promised myself to embrace the opportunities to practice this language and speak it with native speakers, and I can't let myself down at the first try. Buongiorno. Okay, so it's not morning at this point. Ciao, which is possibly too informal, but we'll go with it anyway. Ciao, un tavolo per uno. It feels a little too direct, so maybe we'll add ciao, un tavolo per uno. Grazie. Okay, maybe we'll actually go with one grazie. The second is a little superfluous. So, okay, we have the plan. As a person that is plagued by perfectionism, the fact that my communication will be far less than perfect makes me so uneasy, and so I don't even want to try. Because if I try and I fail, then people, i.e. the hostess, the other staff members, the patrons at the table, might literally laugh in my face. They're gonna know I'm a fraud abroad, if you will. Perfectionism, for me, often manifests in academic circumstances. Perhaps somewhere along the line I started equating academic perfection with self-worth and, sort of snowballed, that kind of thing. And I never liked raising my hand to ask questions in class when I didn't understand, because it felt like defeat or failure. No one was allowed to see me fail because then they would think less of me, naturally. Having practiced what I'll say, I approach the door. But before I can walk in, the perfectionist monster within me whispers, "Hey, actually, you're gonna make a fool of yourself, just so you know." Okay. So I reverse my steps and I continue walking far away from the restaurant until I collapse on a bench in the park amongst the tall grass and the trees. Why can't I do this? If I can't do this simple task, I really don't think I can do anything. Needing something to hold, I reach for the book that I've been carrying, which is Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities. My Italian teacher, Lou, had recommended that I read it while studying here. It's a novella that collects descriptions of various fictional cities that the protagonist, Marco Polo, visits. And it's rumored that all of the city descriptions are, in fact, about visiting Venice. And I recall a quote that I'd underlined the day before, which reads, quote, "I had to free myself from the images which in the past had announced to me the things I sought. Only then would I succeed in understanding the language of Hypatia." I understand this quote at this moment to mean that I must free myself from the restraints of perfectionism in order to grow. Perfectionism has protected me from embarrassment up until this point, it's true. However, it has also prevented me from learning. And, more pressingly at this exact moment, eating a meal. It is quite literally not serving me. I start to think that maybe I don't need to get this right on the first try. Maybe I just need to let all these fears go and just walk up to the door and fail. So, I put on my sunglasses, rise from the bench, and approach the door of Osteria de Campo. My quote-unquote Calvino alter ego has entered the scene. And she speaks Italian. How cool. I walk up to the hostess. Ciao, un tavo per... I'm cut off. La cucina è chiusa, ma possiamo farvi accomodare con un menu limitato. Stiamo servendo lasagna al pesto. She responds. Now, I have absolutely no idea what this woman just said to me. I never said my alter ego understood Italian, and I thought that she would respond with sì or no. So my body and my brain completely freeze, and it feels like the entirety of the waitstaff and patrons turn their attention towards me. Sweat rolls down my face, both from nerves and humidity, probably. My right foot steps back, away from the scene. Before my left foot can follow, though, my stomach grumbles. And I remember who I am at this moment. I'm not perfect, but you know what I am? Hungry. Yeah, hungry. So I say, I'm sorry, I speak English, and I did not catch a word of that. Could you repeat it, please? She smiles and says, sure, the kitchen is closed, but we are still serving pesto lasagna. Is that okay with you? Yeah, it's okay with me. So I sit down. Technically, I had failed. The interaction was not textbook perfect by any means. First, I messed up the word for table. Then, I couldn't follow how quickly she was speaking. Yet, here I am, despite all of that, sitting at the table, alone in a foreign country for the first time ever, ready to feast on a pesto lasagna. And no one had laughed at me or thought less of me. No one had really cared, actually. And maybe those little mistakes can't be called failures at all. From where I'm sitting now, the only version of myself that has truly failed is the one that's still stuck in an infinite loop outside the front door of the restaurant, too plagued by perfectionism to come inside. And that version of myself missed out on a really great meal, which is such a shame. And so, my Calvino alter ego helped me realize that the world won't end if I don't do something perfectly. In fact, it does the opposite. It opens up. When you let go and embrace all that you do not know, you gain the world in return. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get a delicious slice of pesto lasagna out of it. Thank you.